All right, I'm gonna start with the video. Hope you enjoy it, and we'll be back soon.
Okay.
2015 was a glorious spring day. My husband, dog, and 2 kids had only lived in our house for a few months, so we decided to use our youngest child's birthday as an excuse to throw a housewarming birthday party. The house was filled with laughter and friendship as our youngest flitted around in fuzzy red Lightning McQueen slippers and a flowing light blue Elsa dress and tiara. The cake, created by a dear friend, was this beautiful ice castle with Elsa frosted dress on top, and the goodie bags were filled with Frozen and Lightning themed items. Leave it to a 4-year-old to pick their theme. After the party, my husband and I felt wonderful. We were so proud of our beautiful new home, proud of our loving interracial family, proud that we would invite 60 people to an over-the-top princess party for our 4-year-old son. When it was time to take the kids up to bed, I followed our youngest, carefully holding the back of the Elsa dress so those 4-year-old slippered feet wouldn't trip. I hope you had the very best birthday, my sweet princess boy. With my words, my child stopped, turned, looked me straight in the eyes and calmly said, "Mom, I'm not a boy, I'm a girl." In the split second before I responded, it was as if a movie of the last 2 years of our child's life flew through my eyes. The withdrawn child who wouldn't talk to anyone, the kid who didn't like hugs, the tantrumer who only liked certain soft clothes, that Frozen obsession, and the subsequent 6 months of wearing that one Elsa dress over and under every outfit, including snow pants. The many times we tried to explain to family and friends that the reason our child wasn't socializing was because they must be hungry or tired or grumpy. The countless times my husband and I joked that we should never take that Elsa dress off because our child was so much easier when it was on. On our child's 4th birthday, the cork popped out of our youngest son and out flew our daughter. "Mom, you know I'm a girl in my heart and my blood." Dad, I'm Batgirl. Come catch me. Ronnie. My son, who is 17 months older, is Ronnie. Ronnie, can you please call me sister now? Mom and Dad, I'm not a he. I'm a she. Please call me she. And we did. Ronnie first, then my husband, and then I did. And with each small shift that we made as a family to affirm what she told us, something far more powerful was released than just her words. Out spewed joy. Gone was our taciturn, shy son. Here was our dynamic, magnetic, sparkly daughter. "I'm Ellie, E-L-L-I-E," she would tell us. And in Ellie, we saw smiles and laughter. We got hugs. We saw her make friends. We saw real confidence. Most importantly, we saw no other option than to let her be who she told us she was. And as E-L-L-I-E told us who she was, I was left questioning who I was. On the outside, I can make this look very easy. But on the inside, it's not been so clear. I am open-minded and liberal. But if I am, why then sometimes do I mourn my son? I know that we are privileged and have access to all of the best doctors and resources we need as Ellie grows. So even when I know this answer, why do I feel worried hearing questions like, do I have to have a man voice when I grow up? Or, Mommy, can medicine help me grow real breasts too? I research, share our story openly, educate, advocate. Ellie is at an incredible school, and all friends and family and community around us have been affirming. So why do I feel such fear for her? Perhaps it's the 22 transgender women who were murdered last year just for living their lives authentically. Many women of color like Ellie. Maybe because it's the fight that I watch with fellow parents for their child just to use the bathroom at school that matches their child's identity. Could it be the horrific suicide rate amongst transgender teenagers that fuels my sleepless nights? I'm guessing that my feelings are all rooted in these things. I also know I have a dimple-cheeked, intelligent, and confident daughter at home who knows nothing of that side of this journey. I think that those polar opposite feelings I have, acceptance, fear, love, worry, are a result of what makes a mom. That gut-wrenching truth that regardless of the hurricane of emotions, I will provide a safe and loving path for my children to realize their own happiness. And it will be an honor to watch Ellie on her path as she realizes hers.
Hello, good evening, Vanessa and JR Ford. Welcome to our Trans Clinic, TransTuesdays. We are honored to have you here. Welcome, everybody. Good evening. We're happy to have everyone. And without further notice, the mic is yours, Vanessa, and let us hear. I mean, that was amazing. This is like the third or the fourth time I watched this today. This is amazing. I love it so much.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for having us. I haven't seen that in many years. I think I did that in 2016. Yeah. And just for full transparency, now Ellie uses they, them pronouns. So you'll hear us use they, them for the remainder of this time. And even now I'm looking back at that being like, wow, those are some things I felt I would have never articulated it that way now, knowing what I know. But it's so nice to be here. I'm Vanessa Ford. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the mom to two wonderful kids, one of whom is trans and will be 11 in March.
And I'm JR Ford, Vanessa's husband, and I use pronouns he, him. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
I love the I use pronouns. This is what I say all the time, everywhere I go, just to make it easy on everybody. It's just amazing. Hey, my name is Sam. I use this and this pronoun. You know what I mean? And I love that. Thank you so much. That would make it easy on everybody. Dr. Alexis Petra is over here today, and she's the owner and the CEO and the founder of Trans Clinic. You've heard about her, you've read about her. We're all over the social media now. We've hit over 250,000 clicks on Google on less than 2 weeks, which is amazing. Those are great things we have to share with everybody because we're doing amazing work for the community and we want the community to come back to us. You know what I mean? I'll start with my first question, and please, everyone, if you have any question for JR or Vanessa, please write it down and we will love to read it out for them. My first question is, how did you get into, or how did you get involved in the LGBTQ advocacy?
Yep. Well, I think, do you want me to start?
Go for it. Well, first, I will say that in that recording, you didn't see people in the audience, but there were crocodile tears all over the place.
Yeah.
So go ahead. Sorry.
So really, we weren't advocates or anything before Ellie transitioned, we really just had a community around us. Some of people identified as LGBTQ. I identify as bi, but we really weren't thinking about, to be honest, the trans community and all of the amazingness that's out there within the trans community until our child transitioned. And we lived in Washington, D.C. at the time. And luckily, one of my dear friends had a partner who worked for, at the time, the Human Rights Campaign. And when Ellie first came to us and told us who they were, we went and said, are there resources? What's out there? And we started to get connected to other families with trans young people, like little trans kids, like 4 and 5 year old, the littles. And we figured we had a really safe kid who was supported by us, their community, their school, and that there weren't that many stories out there for other families with young trans kids, and especially with kids of color in particular. So we decided to put our voices out there as a way to say, if you don't know anybody, you can know our family. And we hope that that inspires you to support others.
That's awesome. I looked at over the website today and I saw all kind of resources. Me and Claire, we were just talking about it earlier today. Like, this is amazing that on your website you have all those resources for everybody who need, and this is amazing. Let's start talking about Ellie.
Ellie.
Well, he's gonna ask the question.
Sorry, go ahead.
It's okay. You can go ahead. You don't have to wait until I ask a question. Go ahead. Say whatever you want to say. Yes, we're listening.
I'm just going to describe Ellie in a nutshell. They are charismatic, very cool and hot, as they have defined it.
So hot. They are so hot.
So hot.
That's so true.
They will be 11 in about a month and a half. Just a all around great kid. Definitely, their personality is continuing to develop. They're finding their style. But all around just an incredible kid, and we wouldn't have it any other way.
They really are also quite the introvert. So when we do things like this, we talk to Ellie that we're doing it. And just before bed, they said, oh, so you're going to go talk about Calvin and our story? And I said, yeah, and there's going to be amazing trans adults there. And Ellie just grinned, because I think they feel very much part of this community, whether they've met people or not. They know that they're part of something bigger than themselves. That's really wonderful.
And especially being around parents, which like you, which we're thankful for. And it's a blessing that you are there for them. You know what I mean? You are there to just let them know what's happening. Sometimes you don't want to tell them about bad news, but sometimes it's a must to know what's happening out there. So this is amazing. Let's talk about how did you notice at the beginning that they were LGBTQ, or let's say, I'm not going to say trans, just they are different variant. You know what I mean?
Yes, they were gender creative.
Yes.
Very little.
Yes.
Right from when they were about 2, they really struggled with getting dressed, right? It was frustration over what they were going to wear. They started wearing nail polish, and we had dress up clothes in the house, and we had dresses for the kids to choose from, including Ellie's older brother. And Ellie picked this one dress and just wore it for months and months. Until it disintegrated, essentially. And so at the time, we knew we had a kid who was being creative with gender, but it didn't really come to us until they literally told us, I'm a girl in my heart and in my brain.
Right.
That was the language that they used. And then over the course of a few months after that, we researched and decided around July 4th, 2015, to say, great, we hear you. We'll start using she, her pronouns. And we came up with a name, and they picked the name and named themselves after their lovey, which was an elephant. But Ellie also means shining light. So we thought that was really fitting.
That's awesome. how did you support to evolve over time?
Yeah.
So our support really has kind of been all inclusive, I think, from the start, from their older brother to Vanessa and I. We were on board fairly soon after they announced who they were to us. But kind of going back to your first question about, what did we see over the course of, their early years? We were fairly open-minded parents, even in our community back when we were in DC. We were kind of just in the mix on everything, whether it was with school because we were in a really close community. We would, just allow Ellie to kind of be themselves, as Vanessa highlighted in their monologue about us being, liberal people and kind of, we were just trying to be inclusive for whatever it was. But what really kind of tested us was this pronouncement, from Ellie that this is who they were. And we had no clue, or familiarity with, what the trans community was, what did this mean for Ellie's future? So that really did kind of jumpstart our advocacy because it was critically important to us, and it still is.
And I think it was also really interesting. Like we said, Ellie used she, her Ellie has now used a lot of pronouns. So for the first few years, he, him, then she, her for 5. And then during COVID came to us and said, I really feel like they fits better. I still identify as transgender. Transgender non-binary seems to fit where I am right now. And so it really took us some time to say, okay, this is like another transition, right? This is another opportunity. We have to educate people again. We need to make sure people are using the right pronouns. We need to make sure that the school is ready to be able to use pronouns. We had gone through this all initially many years before, but then, Ellie had presented in a way that was quite feminine and didn't pronounce themselves wherever they went. Now they're like, just an awesome, super queer little 11-year-old who is
who's a punk rocker,
kind of like a punk rocker, all black, like combat boots, really feeling their energy selves now. But it's really forced us initially to look back at everything. We still were functioning so much in this binary of like girl, boy. And now Ellie's forced us even more to understand what's outside of that binary.
Awesome. GR, Vanessa mentioned something earlier, especially when it comes to people of color, and you, as a person of color, like, what's your advice for all those people of color families and parents out there, especially because it comes a little bit harder? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think we all come from a learned history, right? For people of color, the African American community, we all come from a history of change, of kind of continued historical preservation of ourselves, which meant that, over the course of the time we've been in this country, we've had to preserve ourselves. So that meant that anything outside of the gender norms were seen as other, in addition to just being Black, being in this country, having all these overt, judgments about you. Being queer in the Black community was always seen as a weakness and as a vulnerability. And that's something that I kind of took to heart because now we have a child who is in the LGBT community. And for me as a Black man, having all these learned, traditions and morals and ethics that really did challenge who I was as a Black man in America, raising, 2 biracial kids, and just kind of having the availing myself and opening up myself to being vulnerable. So it really did take a lot of therapy, a lot of talking with Vanessa about, who I am and who, I continue to be, and just kind of really judging or not even judging, but really just kind of breaking through some of those stereotypes that, you know, we see as a Black strong man, and, you know, you don't cry and you persevere. So, I mean, Vanessa knows that I cry, and I cried a lot. I cried a lot at the beginning because it was something that was completely new. I didn't know how to, I guess, process and navigate through, you know, this kind of gender bending situation and you know, journey that we've been in. So as a Black man, you know, it's really something that I've really tried to focus on, and just being a loving person to our kids.
And I will say, JR saying he had to work through a lot of things. He was the first person besides my son to listen to Ellie. It took me a little bit longer. It was interesting that we would hear from folks that would just be like, oh, it must be that white wife, that white liberal wife who's the one who's pushing this on their child, right?
That was my mom.
No. Yeah, no, that was his mom. No, it's not. She's now very supportive. Yeah. But it really was flipped, and where it took me a little more time. And yeah. And I'm seeing the chat, Wendy. I'm sorry it did not go as you planned, but it seems as if you are living your best life now. Wonderful. And Claire, you're asking questions. I don't know, Sam, if you want to ask the questions, or do you want me to answer what Claire has?
We'll jump to what Claire have for a little bit later. I'm gonna play a short video about the book before we jump to the book. Oh. So my next question is about the resources. How did you find the medical and the physical and everything resources for Ellie when the whole thing started?
Yeah, well, we were really lucky to live in a major city, and a lot of major cities do have clinics for transgender youth, although they were just kind of starting at the time. And so we got connected into the Boston Children's. And when we went for our first visit with our 5-year-old, they were like, well, what do you want us to do? Like, she seems fine, they said. And I was like, well, they are fine. So I guess we'll just see you in 5 years. But it was very hard to get on a wait list, very hard to find and make sure that we had a therapist and
for them,
that we made sure that we had a pediatrician who understood, that we had to make sure the pediatrician was knowledgeable and went along and luckily all of those people were positive. But one of the things we see right now is access to healthcare is a huge issue. Obviously, TransClinique, you know this because it's the work you do. Yeah. And for youth, it's particularly complex because there's so many, it's so hard to get to those resources. They're in major cities, and people are traveling long distances for them. Or those are shutting down. I mean, there's a clinic in Dallas that's shutting down, and that serves Texas. So, you know, I think it's really a big.
We are in Texas now. Anyone can get to us in Texas. So.
Oh, good. Excellent.
Yes, of course.
We will share within our networks. Absolutely. But finding a therapist, also someone who wasn't going to pathologize our child, but just listen and help guide the family and making sure that they were happy. And we luckily found that person, and she's still Ellie's therapist today, 6 years later. So we're really lucky, but it's a constant conversation on any parent network. Where do I get care? How do I get care? How do I bring knowledge to my pediatrician, to my school, all of those pieces?
Yeah. Awesome. So now they have TransClinique. Just spread the word, and that'd be amazing.
I will.
We're in 27 states, and we're going to go bigger, hopefully, too. We're going to try to get the license all over. Right, Dr. Petra?
I'm working on it. Let's consolidate what we have right now.
I know. All right. I'm gonna ask a question about a very important thing that a lot of people think about all the time. School. When it gets to school, a lot of kids there is in the school, you know what I mean? They don't understand what you are dealing with or what Ellie is. So how did you start making sure that Ellie, they're safe in school?
That's a great question. So do you want to start?
No, go ahead. I talk a lot.
Yeah.
I talk all the time. I was a teacher though for 15 years. So
That's right.
caveat to that.
Now, you know, we started out back in DC with a parent letter that we sent to first the teacher or to the principal to have a conversation about, you know, who Ellie was, because we were in the midst of going to a new school, Ellie identifying as trans, and having this all kind of play out in front of us. So one of the ways that we tried to get ahead of it was crafting up a letter to go to the principal and subsequently to the parents within the class to let them know what our journey was looking like and how we would need their support.
I think there were two pieces here, and families do whatever is best for them. And in our situation, we met with the principal. We told them our expectations. We filled out something called a gender support plan. There's some organizations that create these for families with students, like what if there's a substitute, which bathroom to use on a field trip, if there's a problem, who are you going to talk with? And so we filled all that out, but we also knew that our child was leaving school 1 year as one gender and coming back as another, and we wanted to lead with education with the parents. And so we let the parents know this was our journey, this is what we expected. And we had a lot of questions, but for the most part, people were quite supportive and open. We found that people want to be supportive and open, they just don't always know. So if you can provide them resources and support and answers to questions that they have, then they can become allies more easily. But school is definitely really tough for a lot of people to navigate. And middle school, Ellie's in middle school now, has been a little rough, to be honest.
So is there like a situation or something where they come back home and tell you, this is what happened, how can I deal with it? How's the personality acting with it? You know what I mean? As you said earlier, they have a nice personality. So you know what I mean?
They are a little advocate. So they had a bully last year who would say all kinds of different things to Ellie. And Ellie would just articulate very clearly, this is who I am. Yes, this is real. I use they, them pronouns. Please use them. And then, of course, we met with the principal and we met with the teacher, and the kid was held accountable. And the other, thank you, Claire, for dropping down Gender Spectrum. It is from Gender Spectrum.
We have a question from Claire too. I'll ask after you're done with this answer.
Yeah. And then the other thing is there was a time in kindergarten where Ellie came home and said, people don't believe that I'm trans. People don't believe that I was, born one way and now I'm living as a girl. And they brought in a baby. They said, I want to bring in a baby picture and explain to my class that trans people are good and that I'm trans. So they were really proud of who they were. They now are similarly, they don't go to any of the like GSA clubs or anything like that. They don't have an interest because they have their own little group of friends, but they are very out and proud and will always articulate to us if somebody has said something or made them feel a certain way. And they know, most importantly, that we'll go to bat for them.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Claire said, thank you, JR, for sharing your journey of evolution. Another question, why is it so difficult to find trans-friendly doctor and therapist in your area?
I think there's a massive chasm in the training of people who service other people in knowledge of trans issues. In the medical field, I can imagine in medical schools, in social work schools, in schools of education, there's just not a lot of time spent on the topic as there should be. And it just makes finding somebody in your area who has the knowledge and isn't going to question you. For us, it was so important. We didn't want anybody to question what was happening in our house. We just wanted someone to listen and say like, oh, I've heard that before. And, here's how I can support you.
But we did provide resources and information to our pediatrician back in DC. So that was a part of the education, was getting the word out, even to our own, personal doctor for the kids.
And I think a lot of it, what you're seeing, a lot of things with families is that families are doing a lot of this education on the ground. They're going to pediatricians, they're going to schools, they're going to doctors. But again, the biggest question every day on the parent boards is, do you know a trans inclusive gender affirming therapist in fill in the blank? And someone's like, well, I know there's one who does telemedicine in the same state. And we just try to use the network to get that care. And it's really too bad. And I hope it's something that continues to change.
Well, we hope, all of us hope the same thing, because we need, and this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to get the right health for everybody.
Yes.
All right, I'm gonna share a quick video as well, and we will get back after this.
Oh.
Calvin is the story of a trans kid who's just supported in all aspects of his life. And that's not necessarily the case for all trans kids, but we wanted to show the simplicity with which you can support trans youth and the ways they can thrive. I stood up proudly to share my summer story. But first, I introduced myself. Hi, I said, my name is Calvin, Calvin, and I felt my what ifs melt away. One of the things we're most excited about is Calvin going home to schools, libraries, and people's own homes.
The thing I want people to take from Calvin is to be courageous, to be brave. To see Ellie transition has really been exciting, over the past 6 years, to see where they were and now see them continue to flourish and evolve as a person. We couldn't have asked for anything better.
Oh, hi. We didn't want to see the reporter, but he just
Yeah.
Yes, so Calvin,
Calvin!
Bring him out.
your book, Calvin, is absolutely incredible, and I ordered one and it still didn't get here. I wanted to hold it with me today, but it didn't get the time. I'm so mad about this. So tell us, how did you decide to do this project, and how has been the response?
Mm.
Go for it.
So when Ellie was little, there was one book out called I Am Jazz by Jazz Jennings about a trans girl. But there were hardly any other books out there at the time. And in 2018, we were looking at the books that existed, and there were also no books with trans boys or trans kids of color. And so we decided to work together to tell a story about a trans boy who's biracial, who's supported by his family, community, and school, and introduces himself for the first time. We also really wanted to write a book that was devoid of bullying and of having the trans character try to defend who they are. So there's nothing in this book where Calvin says who he is and somebody says, "Are you sure?" Right? Like, that can't be true. It's just supported and affirmed. And since Calvin, we started writing Calvin, there have been other great books. When Aiden Became a Brother, My Rainbow, Born Ready, that have really gender diverse characters, especially brown and diverse characters. But it's been great, and the response has been wonderful. It's been really,
yeah, it really has. We got contacted from a trans man who shares the same name as Calvin. So we've also had one of our other close friends who's teaching Calvin as a part of their curriculum in their class. And so it's really been incredible and heartwarming to see the response that we've gotten so far.
Yeah, it's really neat. We're getting pictures from people who are reading it with their grandparents. We're getting pictures in classrooms. We had one man write us to say that his parents didn't understand when he transitioned. So he took Calvin and he put Post-its on each page annotating his story alongside Calvin's story.
God, that's amazing.
And so I don't care if it doesn't sell another lick, that meant the world. Right. And nobody writes a children's book to get wealthy, and that's certainly not why we wrote a children's book. But everybody hopes that their books sell a lot, But for us, we want it to sell a lot because it means it's getting into more hands. And interestingly, right now it's carried at Target stores, which A, says a lot about Target being able to bring this book into the books that they're selling.
Yeah.
But B, I've heard from people in Alabama, Arkansas, Texas, Arizona, and they're able to find it in their stores, and to see people say like, oh my gosh, there's a story about a Black trans kid in my Target store, has felt really, really, really good.
I know. Claire asked, are there other books thinking of trans girls and non-binary kids?
There are lots of books out there, and there are some books we're working on as well.
What are you working on? Give us that.
That's where it's going. Yes, we're working on a draft right now of a trans girl and her basketball team. We know the topic of trans kids in sports is one that we need some more positive representation around, and also another draft of a non-binary kiddo and their first experience at camp. So those are kind of the ideas that are floating now, but there are definitely other books that are in this genre being written by great people around. But on our end, yes, we're working on the next ones.
There's some things going on in the background.
We were supposed to have the illustrator with us tonight, but she mixed the dates and she didn't do it today. Yes.
She's wonderful, and she's a great illustrator. We could have never brought Calvin to life without her.
He is beautiful because of Kayla.
Same illustrator for the next book?
Well, we'll have to see if we have to make the book. There is a next book, but let's put it into the universe that yes, there will be, and then hopefully she'll say yes.
Perfect. My next question is, tell us more about your advocacy for LGBT rights, specifically rights for transgender youth and trans kids being attacked through policies and legislations across the country. How do you think more stories of trans kids and youth can help combat misinformation and hate?
Wow. Well, over the course of the past few years, we've seen an incredible amount of anti-trans legislation all across the country. One of the ways that we got involved here in the Boston area was we had a state referendum back in 2018 for Yes on 3 to support trans youth. And so we really do say start local, start advocating at the local level, whether it's at the school boards or the city council. It's really about starting local to help change the minds of people who aren't familiar with the issues that the trans community goes through. We're a part of the Human Rights Campaign, which is a national level organization that has the reach out to different areas of the country to provide the resources and materials. So that's one of the ways that we're trying to help promote the resources and materials. But we've seen numerous people in our friend circle be impacted by continuous legislation to erase their kids.
Just today, the Texas law banning trans girls in sports went into effect. We have dear friends in Texas and in Arizona. One of our friends and her 14-year-old trans son are going to be testifying on Thursday in Arizona. Ultimately, this does harm to kids. This does harm to adults as well, but it's as if they're targeting trans kids in a hope that they'll eradicate all trans people eventually. It really is this strategic mission that's to target trans kids in lots of ways. South Dakota, Arizona, Mississippi has something going on the books today. I think there's something like 40 bills already this year. If you don't follow Chase Strangio from the ACLU on Twitter, he really keeps up to date on all of the different bills, but it harms trans kids because it has them living in an environment where they know people are actively fighting against them.
Yeah. And we are, this country is familiar with dividing and separating people. And, you know, it's a part of the lifeblood, unfortunately, of this country, and of the government and the local laws and the national laws that have continued to erase people.
That's what I'm about to say. It's like, it's so annoying, but it's different every single state. Every single city in a different state is different. So like, you come to California, you don't hear anything about those laws. You go to Texas or whatever, and you hear all about those laws and bills, which is really annoying. Well, I hope we get to a place where it's the same laws all over the states, because we need it. We need it so bad. You want to say something, Vanessa?
Just going to say the state work, the local work, as JR was saying, the school board work, even the school by school work,
which we're doing,
matters.
Yeah.
Claire said, so important to contact your state legislatures and representatives. I have maybe some personal question. I want to hear the answer from Vanessa first, then from you, or vice versa, whatever you think want to start. In what ways having a transgender kid changed your life?
Oh my gosh. In so many ways. My life is so much richer now than it was before. I have beautiful and amazing trans friends. We are part of this community and network of families. It has opened my mind to understanding the spectrums on which people live. I think it's made me a better mom. There are many things that I still fail at as a mom, but my kid will always know that I love and support them.
All that matters. It's all that
I mean, they are barely getting fed, but that's okay.
That's my choice.
So, you know, it has just opened, my life is so much better now. It's really such a joy to have a trans kiddo and watch them thrive. And it makes you want to be so much more authentic yourself, right? Take away all those facades and just be you.
You know, one thing I think that we haven't really touched on, I mean, it feels, you know, positive and airy, but it is a journey, you know, as a human being to continue to evolve, you know, as individuals, as a couple, as a family. So it really did test us, you know, for better and for worse. You know, we have navigated and have, you know, gone through these obstacles so that Ellie can be themselves.
So how has it changed you as a dad, person?
I'm awesome now.
Okay. No,
you know, it has changed me. It has humbled me as an individual, as a man, as a human being, as a cis man who has been able to tap into his emotions and to kind of unwind myself, because I've come to the understanding that, you know, it's not about me. It's about making sure that we raise an incredible, positive human being. And that's what it's all about. So breaking down all those different barriers about who I am was probably one of the biggest things that I've learned over the course of our journey.
Dr. Alexis said, yes, our community is really tight and loving, and the chosen family I have made still amazes me.
Yes.
Claire said, yes, Alexis, chosen family. Well, hey, sister. One more last question, and I'll give the mic to you to say whatever after you want to say. Family-wise, like close family, how did that go? Because I heard you mention earlier that JR's mom's still not accepting as much as supposed to be accepting. But like in general, not only the mom or the parents, in general, family, how did they see that? How did did someone disapprove that? Did someone give you some like BS because of that?
One would expect yes, but we really didn't have that. Ellie had full support of I think there were some questions early on about the whole question of, is this a phase? Because Ellie was so young, but they ultimately said, you are Ellie's parents and you understand them, and we will do what we need to. And it took them a while to get pronouns right and everything, but they've been phenomenal, phenomenally supportive. And on JR's side, your sister has been phenomenal, and your mom really.
Yeah, my mom.
It took a minute in the beginning.
So my mom's a, Southern woman, and she's raised in a different time, and she was and still is supportive. It is just taking her a long time to get the pronouns right, and
Well, as long as she is trying to.
Yes, she's very much trying to.
Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. Yes.
Yeah, it's like we have to remind her or give her some side looks and focus woman,
And we also have in Calvin, the grandparents in the book, the grandfather is the one who gives Calvin his haircut for the first time. And the grandmother is the one who holds up the mirror and says, you look so handsome. We wanted to build in grandparents into the story because they're very much part of a lot of people's stories.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Any projects other than books coming out soon?
Oh gosh, work. We both have work. We're doing work with the Human Rights Campaign right now for Parents for Transgender Equality Council. We're actually working on a national parent survey of parents of trans kids to help look for gaps in resources and also identify things like medical care and sports and what people need and what supports they need. So we're working with them right now to disseminate that and get families out there filling it out.
Yeah.
And then of course the other books, but those are still in our head.
Well, let's give Calvin some time so everyone know about Calvin. Then I think you should start with the other book. But at the same time, preparing for it, I know it takes some time to write it down, editing, illustration, everything. So we out and excited for it all the time. Any questions for Vanessa and JR? Let's do. Claire said, yes, please share the survey link and we can post on social.
Yes, I will. I'll send it to you, Sam.
Yeah, send it to my email, please.
Yes. I don't know it off the top of my head.
Oh, sorry. So I was just curious, were either of you sort of authors before, or maybe I missed that part? I know you're a teacher and things like that. And so I was just like, this is a wonderful inspiration, and just like,
Our kid inspired us, and we thought we would work to write a children's book. I guess I say we're not writers, but we did write a book. So we are.
You're a writer.
It's something that there are people who dedicate their whole lives to writing, and I have such respect for them, but we also have our day jobs in IT and in ed tech, and we do try to work on the writing when we can, but we hadn't written before.
No, first time. So it was quite good. It was a 3-year journey.
It was a 3-year process. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I just ordered a book, so I can't wait to.
Ooh, well, I can't wait, Alexis.
Jump in.
I guess
always
another question. Okay.
There's always first time for anything, and I am writing a book too. So.
Wow, nice. I think everybody should write a book.
That's the first time I have said it out loud, but it is happening already.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome.
Yes. It's about my life story, moving from the Middle East as a queer person to the US, and all what happened. It will come out next year, I hope.
Oh my gosh, congratulations.
That's fantastic.
Of course. Thank you so much. I have a question. How is the community in Boston itself?
So we live about 30 minutes outside of Boston in a suburb, but the community is growing. On our street alone, there's grandparents with a trans kid and another trans kid. And right down the street, there's another trans kid. There's a lot of trans kids. But in terms of the community, it's really growing and getting really strong. And we don't we really had, I think, a much bigger and closer community when we were in Washington, D.C.
Oh, yeah.
We haven't gotten to know as many people since we've been up here. And I think that it is, it's time that we know more folks.
We should talk about it all over again and just keep spreading the words, I guess. And that's how we're gonna be out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we can absolutely share in our networks too.
Awesome. Any questions for JR and Vanessa?
JR, I just wanted to thank you for sharing your evolution. I've often wondered why in the Black community there's such a predominance of trans killings. And you helped me kind of understand that better. And I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Wendy.
Any more questions?
I just have a comment. I would say that the past years, I mean, TransConnect is about 18 almost 2 years old, but and what I've seen quite a bit of is non-binary individuals, and from both sides, most typically kind of born cisgender female to kind of non-binary spectrum. That's the most common, but I'm seeing it the other way quite a bit too now. And speaking with a lot of therapist friends and some people in WPATH, and that's really unusual. Well, it's not unusual, but it's something that is much more common than, say, 15 years ago when I transitioned. Everything was very binary. So that's just a new phenomenon, and just wanted to mention that. I'm sure you know that. Obviously, he lived it, but
we're living it.
Yeah, exactly. So
we're living it.
But yeah, there's plenty of folks out there that feel the same way.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you. And Catherine, do we have advice for trans people who don't have accepting family? Well, welcome to our family. I think that what a loss for the family to lose out on loving someone who's trans.
Yeah.
And my advice would be to find, keep, and grow your chosen family. Just because their blood doesn't mean that they are going to be the people to support you. But if there's any way that we can ever support, we're really easy to find, and we're just an email away. Find your chosen family so that you're not alone.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get the new link that they announced today for free testing at home.
Oh, yes.
So I can share it with everybody, but I am not finding it. But I will find it. Claire said I will add Sam. I will add it, Sam. Thank you, Claire, my savior. Yeah, I've been trying to find it. I can't find it. Yeah, this is a good option. So everyone can just order. USPS will deliver it for you, a box that have 4 of them, and every single apartment in or house in the US will get one by the end of January.
Mm-hmm.
Claire just shared this, the link. Thank you, Claire. Awesome. How's COVID in Boston?
Oh, it's rampant. It's not good here. I think it's like everywhere else in the country. And Claire asked, how's it been with Ellie at home during COVID? I think that both kids at home, Ellie actually is such an introvert that they actually liked remote learning, but our son hated it. Yeah. And I don't think it was good for anybody. So now they're back in school and it seems to be a little bit better, but
it was a kind of a bumpy road getting back into in-person school.
Yeah.
I think that was the hardest part. But they kind of went back into the normal flow. They found their friend group.
Yep. We're glad they're back in school, but every day we're like, when are they going to go back remote again?
Yeah.
We don't know yet. It might be happening. It's going.
I know.
2020 just started. We were just about to have a tsunami here in San Francisco. A couple days
That's
ago.
Oh my
insane.
God.
I saw that.
Yeah, it was crazy. Did you see that explosion in the water?
Yes.
It's crazy, like literally crazy.
And if anybody doesn't have any other questions or you think of them later, our email in the chat, you can always just reach us super easily, just at jrandvanessaford@gmail.com. Sam will attest that I respond to email generally pretty quickly.
I know, right? Because I wake up in the morning and I find your email because you're 3 hours ahead. So I was like, oh my God, it's too early for that email. But I remember that you're 3 hours ahead, you know?
Yeah, it's almost 10 p.m. here. That's right. We're on the East Coast.
All right. I really want to thank you so much. You make our life better. Trust me. You made us so happy. I'm smiling from my heart. This is amazing. Keep doing what you're doing. We're proud of you. I'm gonna reach out so I can talk to you about putting our trans clinic on your resources page as well.
Absolutely.
Anyone want to say something before we end our beautiful, amazing meeting today? All right. We just opened a YouTube channel just 2 days ago, and we might start adding all those videos on the YouTube channel. I'm working on that really hard, but I started posting some videos on that YouTube channel. Help us share too. It's Trans Clinic on YouTube. I will share some affirming videos and what for trans kids, for sports, trans at sports and everything. What else? For all those people who did not sign up yet, Trans Clinic is becoming fully inclusive on February 1st. So all those services like Trans Clinic, the workout session, everything gonna be for subscribers as well. And we have a promotion going on right now. We have a $50 off discount. It's all over Instagram for the first-time subscribers. And we have a code as well for people who are already our patients, which is gonna be $10 off each and every month. And she's with us today. Cassie, we're gonna thank you again for donating for a whole subscription for a year for whoever is in need or they are in need. We appreciate your donation. We love you so much. I hope every one of you have a wonderful rest of your night. We love you so much, and we'll see you next week. Good night.
Okay. Good night, everyone. Stay safe. Thank you.
Good night. Stay safe. Bye.
Thank you. Chair.